Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network. Today I'm going to be sharing with you a couple of my recent articles written for The Last American Vagabond. It's a two-part series about 5 ways you can protect your health and 5 ways you can protect your privacy. And we're going to dive deep into that. And a lot of this research I did for these articles is actually coming from past research and articles I've done over the last decade plus. And so it's really cool to kind of have an article like this where I can specifically hone in on 5 different areas. Obviously, when you're talking about health and privacy, these are massive topics, so I can't cover everything in an article talking about just 5 things. But these specific areas that I focused on have come up more recently for me, both in terms of health and in privacy. And I think that what I put in these articles is actually pretty useful information for those of you who choose to step up and apply it to your lives. So we're going to get into that and more in this video. First thing, I want to remind you guys to bookmark theconsciousresistance.com. That is theconsciousresistance.com. This is the home for all of my content, guys, where I've been posting for over a decade. You can find books, documentaries, you can find podcasts. We have all of my content. We also have a recent contributor, Anthony Samaroff, who you'll be seeing an interview from very soon. He writes articles focused on health and big pharma for the Conscious Resistance Network, and you can find all of that good stuff there. So the other thing is, as I mentioned, I write articles for The Last American Vagabond. If you go to The Last American Vagabond, you look up TLAV team, you'll see my name, Derrick Broze, there. You can click there, and you see all of my latest articles, including this one I just did about confronting members of the political class, which I'll be doing a video about very soon as well. And you will find these 2 articles, 5 ways your health is under attack and how to protect yourself, and 5 ways your privacy is under attack and how to protect it. And that's what we're going to focus on. We're going to go over both of these articles. I'm not going to read every aspect. I feel like I say this with every video I do about my articles, but it's worth repeating. I want you to go read it yourself. I put a lot of information here that I'm not going to just, read the whole thing to you. We're going to go over the main basic points and the key items here, but I would encourage and appreciate if you take the time to actually read all the information and things I put in here, because I'm not going to cover that all. So let's start with health. I started this by saying your body, mind, and spirit are under attack and it's time to fight back. And I wholeheartedly believe that. The other thing I wrote is that, as an independent journalist, I've been covering a number of topics over the years, and because I pretty much just choose whatever I want to write about. I have no editor or anybody telling me what to write about. Occasionally Ryan might have some suggestions or ideas, but for the most part, I just write about whatever is on my mind and intriguing me at that moment. And I don't always just focus on what's popular or in the current headlines. But when I've written about health over the years, I've come to see just how important writing about and talking about and reporting on health, and I don't mean just like, obviously health, that's kind of a big term, right? What do you mean, like the US government, health department, CDC, FDA, or do you mean individual health, community health? Are you talking about allopathic medicine? Are you talking about naturopathic or holistic care? It's a big thing, right? And are you talking about mental health, physical health, spiritual health? I personally believe all of these things are important and that we should put energy into protecting and lifting up our health in all of these different areas. But I just realized, as I've written about and kind of touched on different areas, like for example, writing about the fluoride trial and stuff like that, that this is something that is actually way more impactful to you than, say, reading about wars happening in other countries. Now, obviously, if the war is happening in your country, then it's going to impact you. But for the most part, especially in the Western nations where we don't have active wars taking place on our lands, we read about them happening in the Middle East or in Ukraine and stuff like that. That's pretty far away. But what you eat every day, what you drink every day, what you consume through your mind, your body, and your spirit does affect you and impact you on a day-to-day basis, as well as the long-term, throughout your life and just health in general, as well as your children, for anybody out there who has kids, or like me, is an uncle and aunt who has nieces and nephews that you also care about and you want to protect and take care of. So with that said, we understand health is something we can actually take steps towards protecting. So let me go into the 5 ways that your health is under attack and give you a couple of ideas of what to do about it. And again, I'm going to really summarize this because this could turn to a pretty long video, because we're going to go over both these articles and I don't want to spend an hour talking about this. Water fluoridation. This is a topic I've covered extensively, and basically in this article I just kind of go back over some of the areas of research that I've previously covered and just making the case for anybody who hasn't spent time going down the fluoride rabbit hole who might happen across this article and needs a little bit of reassurance of why fluoride is something they should want to avoid and keep out of their children's bodies. So let's focus on the important part. What can you do about it? Thankfully, the personal solutions for avoiding water fluoridation are available to most people. If you can afford it, install reverse osmosis filtration systems in your sinks and showers. Now, reverse osmosis is specifically needed because it's the strongest type of filter that does remove the fluoride molecule. And then the shower is because you do absorb fluoride through your skin. I've seen different data, some saying it's very little, it's inconsequential, but look, fluoride's a toxin and our skin is the biggest organ in our body. We're absorbing things through it. I would just try to avoid it when possible. And if you can't afford to install filters, search your area for water refill stations. And these come in all different brands. I know that in the areas that I've been in, they're like the Penguin Station or the Windmill Express or just all these different brands that exist now. And they're just little stations that you can pull up and bring your whatever gallon jug you got. I get the big 5-gallon ones, so we only, we get a couple of those and refill them throughout the week. And you just go in there and it costs like 25 cents a gallon. I think we pay for 5 gallons, $1.50. So, I mean, that's way better price than bottled water or, other options. So that's one step you can take. Those are a couple of steps you can take. And like I said, I've seen these being filled for as little as $1.50, depending on where you're at. It might be vary, but definitely I would say less than $5. You can get 5 gallons of water for sure. And you want to make sure, again, that this filling station that they do, usually they're offering like 8 to 10 different types of filters, ozone, UV, etc. But you want to make sure there's reverse osmosis. And then another thing is, and as I mentioned here, you should also consider adding trace minerals to your water afterwards. Like, you can buy little drops and things like that at various stores, because reverse osmosis is so strong that it does actually remove minerals and things that might be beneficial to you as well. So if you're just drinking reverse osmosis water, and you might be kind of losing out on some minerals, so you got to remember that. So with an investment of around $20 or less, you can get a 5-gallon jug of water, the reusable 5-gallon. Now, if you're going to get the plastic ones, you want to make sure it's BPA free and free of all the other toxins that are out there. You can buy the glass ones. Those are a little more expensive and obviously heavy, but those are cool too. And water. But generally, let's say you get a 5-gallon jug and you get some water. That's probably going to cost you less than $20 to do so. And then, of course, after that, you can just refill it for the $1.50. And then maybe after a while, you realize, like, hey, between cooking and drinking and all that, we need more water. So we're going to have two 5-gallon jugs in the house. And, that takes a little bit of time and energy and effort. But gosh dang, isn't it worth to protect yourself from this poison? And if you can't afford water filters and you don't have a filling station nearby, you do have the option of purchasing bottled water. However, be aware that some bottled waters have been found to be basically fluoridated as well, where they're either repackaged bottled water or just where some companies are adding fluoride still to it as supposed to be beneficial. And of course, there's concerns about plastic bottles and BPA and things like that leaching into the water, so you got to look out for that. But those are some options that you can consider. Now, the next one is toxic chemicals in general. So we're talking about fluoride specifically, but let's just talk about the broader spectrum of toxic chemicals that are out there. Americans are swimming in a soup of chemicals which can impact neurodevelopment, disrupt the endocrine system, and reduce fertility. According to a survey by the U.S. Geological, according to a study by the U.S. Geological Survey, 45% of the U.S.'s tap water is estimated to have one or more type of the chemicals known as polyfluorinated alkyl substances, or PFAS, also known as forever chemicals. So 45% of the nation's water estimated. Now that could be a low estimate, right? It could be 100% for all we know. And this is just, of course, the latest in a similar admissions of water quality that has come. You got the Flint, Michigan situation years ago that's still ongoing, for those who don't know, with lead in the water. Just this last week, there was a report came out about the Houston Independent School District, where I live, that some ridiculous amount, I think it was over 50%, I don't have it in front of me, of the schools that have been tested so far have high levels of lead in the water. There's kids there drinking that. Not only they're drinking fluoridated tap water in the faucets, but now it's got lead in it too. You've also got residue of psychotropic drugs, lead, as I mentioned, and fluoride all in the water supply. And you've found, some studies have found that everyday household products reduce fertility in women by as much as 40%. And a paper published by Mount Sinai researchers in the journal Science of Total Environment, the researchers reported that higher blood concentrations of PFAS were associated with a significant reduction in the likelihood of pregnancy and live birth among women in Singapore. And I've also written about over the years the impact of pesticides on honeybees and humans. There's just so much to that. Obviously, you get glyphosate from Monsanto, Bayer, linked to early pregnancies as well as cancers. So all of that stuff is just floating around in the atmosphere and the water and all around us. So what can we do? The best thing, again, is to try to avoid it where possible, like fluoride. I talked about filters, remove filters from the water. Fluoride as well as other toxins. It's not just fluoride that you're trying to remove. There are other chemicals. So that's the importance of the filtered water in general. And try to avoid everything in the home cleaning chemical soup. So, there's maybe some of you out there who buy very mainstream products to wash your clothes in, Tide, and I don't even know these companies. I grew up, my mom used them, but you're using the dryer sheets, you're using just mainstream soaps and stuff with lots of fragrances and chemicals and not natural oils and other things that do get in your skin and can impact you. As I just said a moment ago, there's all these different data coming out. So you want to look up fragrance-free, chemical-free alternatives to all the products you use. And I know that some of you are like, no, I don't want that hippie stuff with essential oils. I need something that's going to remove the grease off my pan. And I get it, but you need to consider, for one, think about the pan you're cooking in, right? What kind of toxins are on that pan? You need to watch out for that stick-free stuff. But yeah, think about your health in terms of what you're willing to do to actually take care of yourself. And maybe that means changing products, and hopefully it does. That's the one point I want to make now. I guess I should have started with this, is that everything in this 5 ways to protect your health and 5 ways to protect your privacy is about what you are going to do. This isn't anything I can do. This isn't about voting for somebody. This isn't about necessarily buying anything. There's some tools I'll suggest. But overall, it's about you changing your habits and actually living, in line with your values and protecting privacy and protecting health, and not just being lazy and saying, oh, it's just so easy though to not bother doing anything. So if you don't want to change your habits, then, go ahead and turn the video off. But for those of you who are interested, these are some tips and ideas. The Environmental Working Group also says to avoid dryer sheets and softeners altogether when it comes to washing. Because again, there's the dryer sheets, there's the fabric softener, and there's the soap that you're using, all of that stuff. So again, fragrance-free, avoid pesticide exposure. That's a little bit harder. But to do that, we got to talk about good food. And so the third way that your health is under attack, processed non-organic foods. And I get it, of course, how difficult it can be to buy organic foods. But you all know, I just touched on a moment ago, that the so-called traditionally, conventionally grown foods are covered in fungicides, pesticides, insecticides, which have been linked to cancers and developmental issues, endocrine issues, as we mentioned. And most non-organic produce in the United States is sprayed with these chemicals, especially the foods which have been grown from genetically modified or genetically engineered seeds, which are actually specifically designed to withstand a high dose of the cancer-linked Roundup from Monsanto, which is what contains glyphosate. So the combination of GMO foods doused in toxic chemicals and grown in soil, which by the way has lost much of its nutrition over generations due to monocropping, this is definitely a recipe for disaster of public health. So what can we do about it? Because we want to avoid all those different things. Now, I start off by saying here that obviously with inflation and all the cost of housing, just in general, cost of food, gas, it's difficult. I understand that it's hard for people to imagine buying all organic, but I do think there are some ideas here. So let me give you a couple. First off, you don't have to just depend on the big box grocery chain that's near you, okay? That's obviously the easiest way to get your groceries, but depending on where you live, I would say most places, I would say 80 to 90% of the places, there's going to be local farmers markets in your areas, or maybe even just actual farmers, and not just like farmers markets like in the suburbs and the city. But if there are such markets where people growing produce, like here in my, tomorrow I'm going to go to a market, there's a local guy that Miriam and I've got connected to that has indoor mushroom growing lion's mane, organic lion's mane, and all kinds of amazing mushrooms and stuff like that, right? So you build that relationship, you make that connection, get some stuff from people like that, get some stuff from the big box stores. So you start to develop these relationships and learn which organic crops are going to be available to you, obviously depending on your region and the climate and time of year and season and all that stuff. Now, another option would be to get involved in a local community garden or an urban farm or a community supported agriculture, CSA, which is where you sign up and they'll deliver food shares on a weekly basis to your house and stuff like that. But let me tell you this, there is no better feeling, absolutely no better feeling. Maybe there's a few, but this is definitely a great feeling to plant a seed in the dirt, to take care of it and to tend to it and then watch it flourish and grow, and then to be able to watch it, whatever it is, fruit into itself, and to pick the leaves and eat them if it's a green, or to pick the fruit from that tree or from that bush, the berries or from the vine, and take them in and make something for people you love. Like, that's just an amazing feeling. So I know it can be expensive, but let me just tell you guys this. This is not where I want to be or where I aim to be. I'm manifesting bigger things this coming months and year. But at the moment, I probably make, at best, $30,000 a year. With just my salary from The Last American Vagabond, I'm making something like $22,000, $24,000 a year. On top of that, with book sales that periodically come in, a few $1,000s extra here and there, events or different things I'm invested in. But on average, let's say $25,000 to $30,000 a year. That's not a lot of money, especially living in the U.S. It's not too bad when I'm back in Mexico. I could definitely live a little more comfortably. But even with that, I only eat organic. I would say 95% of everything I eat is organic, except for when I go out to eat. The rare times that Miriam and I go out to eat, we can't control that. But and there are some organic restaurants, but often they're overpriced or it's just, they're just not available. But we prefer to cook at home, and we're only eating organic. It's very rare now these days that we make any exceptions for buying anything. And I mean everything from cookies to, fruit and veggies and, grains and bread and whatever the heck else we're eating, because we're just getting more and more serious about it. We know how bad it is. I've known for years, and I'm not trying to poison myself any further. And I commit to, if that means I got to go without certain things, like I can't go out and party with my friends and drink beer on the weekend, which is not really what I do, or I can't, go splurge and do this thing, then I'm going to do it to make sure I can eat organic. I just want to say that. But if you're not in a position to buy organic at all, or 100% of the time, maybe you buy what you can. And when you can't, I encourage you to use this. This is included in my article, the Environmental Working Group's Dirty Dozen Guide, which shows the produce which is most consistently found to have high levels of pesticides. And these are the different products that you want to avoid if you are buying conventional, traditional, whatever, because they're going to be high in pesticides. And additionally, processed foods typically have pesticides in them because, again, they're not organic, but also fluoride. If there's any kind of water content, unless they specifically say reverse osmosis water or filtered water, something like that, you can bet it's going to be fluoridated water in there. And so along with that fluoride contains pesticides too. So you're getting double dose of pesticides and chemicals all up in there when you're buying non-organic processed foods. So throw that one out there. Third, Bluetooth and electromagnetic radiation. This is really where this whole thing started for me. I was going to the gym and watching all these people wearing freaking Bluetooth headphones while they had their smartwatch on their wrist and they're looking at their smartphone, or it's in their breast pocket or butt pocket or whatever, and it's just like, oh my God. In fact, we're in the process of making a new conscious resistance shirt that is going to say, ask me why I don't use Bluetooth, and then it'll have a link to my documentary on 5G. So if you like that idea, stay tuned for that. But I think most of this crowd is probably familiar with the concerns around Bluetooth and electromagnetic radiation. I'm not saying that when it comes to Bluetooth and Wi-Fi that the data is 100% conclusive, but I think we have so much available evidence on other areas of electromagnetic radiation, electromagnetic frequencies, that we can pretty much gauge that that we should at least exercise the precautionary principle and not be putting these freaking things in our ears and walking around all day, especially young kids. People are going to end up with tumors. People have already had tumors over the years for cell phones. There's court cases going back to the 90s. I cover all of this in my documentary and in one of the Pyramid of Power chapters, but read this section if you're excuse me, if you're not familiar with this. Now, what can you do about this? I've talked about this in many videos, including my documentary. Unplug your Wi-Fi at night. Unplug your Wi-Fi at night. Unplug your Wi-Fi at night. If you do nothing else, that one step can help your sleep. And your sleep is so important because that's when your body rehabilitates. That's when your body heals and recuperates and repairs. And if you're not getting good sleep, then you're not going to be fully healing. You're not going to be getting all the full benefits of your workouts and your good food you're eating and everything else we talked about before this. So you need good sleep. So unplug the Wi-Fi. And if you can, rewire your whole house. That means from your mouse, don't use a Bluetooth mouse, don't use a Bluetooth keyboard. Get your internet router back to being, plugged in where you're on Ethernets. Yes, this might end up, you could, if you got the money, string it through the wall and you got an Ethernet cable that just comes up to your desk. But for some people, this might mean, like in my house, we have these super long Ethernet cables that we plug into the thing and we plug into people's devices so that we don't really have to operate with Wi-Fi when possible. That's the most ideal situation. There's also companies out there. I'm not shilling any particular company. I've worked with some in the past. You go out there, do your research and decide. But companies that have shields or Faraday cages which block this radiation, but of course they also block the cell phone signal. But I think the idea of not being plugged in or tuned in all the time isn't so bad actually. Like for example, when you go to the gym or you go on a walk with your dog, do you need to take the phone on that 15-minute walk? I mean, I guess if you're worried about the kids and there could be an emergency, but at the same time, I feel like a lot of that is just an excuse to just keep our phones with us all the time. I don't even have a phone, but I'm definitely on Miriam's phone sometimes if I'm like super plugged in, or I'm always on my computer. But I feel like sometimes we have these excuses to keep ourselves plugged in. Why not just go on the walk or go to the gym and have no idea what's going on and leave the notifications and the emails and the phone calls till you get back to it? Or if you do put the phone in the pouch to protect yourself from the radiation, it's okay. You're not getting any calls. They'll be there once you open it up. The signal will turn back on and you'll see, okay, I've got 10 messages. And I promise you will survive. And of course, this is just our internal home, what we can do for ourselves. But when it comes to the big bad world out there, I mean, you got electromagnetic radiation from cell towers, small cell sites, Wi-Fi routers, smart devices, which is the vehicles, the phones, the appliances, etc. And then the sensors that are just everywhere, which are part of the Internet of Things, of course, in the smart cities, etc. And there are some companies selling cloth, like I've seen some that's like lined with silver and different material that's supposed to reflect or block the signal, protect you from it. Again, do your research, do your time out there, but it's important to know that you do have options. So let's just recap real quick. Bluetooth and electromagnetic radiation, processed non-organic foods, toxic chemicals, water fluoridation, and our final one is fear porn and self-doubt. Now this one to me is the most important one. We're going to end this here after this and go to the 5 ways you can protect your privacy. You know what, actually, I think what I'll do, now that I've mentioned it, it makes more sense. We're going to do a separate video for that. So we'll end this video in just a moment and then I'll come back and do another video where you will hear about 5 ways to protect your privacy. Fear porn and self-doubt. This to me is one of the biggest ways that our health is under attack, mental health, spiritual health, because it's more subtle. Because this, as I wrote, comes in the form of constant overstimulation via social media and the internet in general, stress-inducing broadcasts from the corporate media, and the never-ending barrage of consumerism, vanity, and immorality promoted by the popular culture. And while these attacks might not be as obvious as the chemicals in our food and water, they are just as toxic. In fact, because these attacks are more spiritual and emotional, they often go overlooked or completely ignored. We are facing an epidemic of loneliness, and it's being weaponized by wannabe tyrants, particularly among young people who feel this despair about the future because they've been told that everything's doomed. I've heard this from my nieces and nephews, unfortunately. COVID-19 lockdowns only accelerated this loneliness with the rise in alcohol, drug abuse, and suicide rates coming shortly after that. And now the world, I think, is kind of many people in the world are in a state of just wanting to give up. They're just like overwhelmed. They're just throwing their hands up like this is too much. Like people are ready to give up on the idea that there could be any sort of world where we have relative peace, health, and prosperity for most, if not all, of the people. But what can we do about this? We can live our best lives. We can start with the steps I just mentioned about fluoride and getting the toxic chemicals out of our lives and processed non-organic foods and the radiation. We can start removing toxic people from our lives, start removing toxic habits that we carry around that we know are not valuable. We can spend time journaling, writing down our goals and dreams. And I don't care if you're a man, woman, whatever. This is something that each person who wants to be the conscious, empowered being in control of their own mind and not letting other people dictate what their state of mind is going to be, and thus through that state of mind what their future is going to be. If you're a person that wants to be in charge, then take charge. Sit down, write out your thoughts, your goals, your dreams for the next week, the next month, the next 6 months, and the next year. Spend time unplugged away from the phones, computers. Go ride bikes. I love riding bikes. I just went on a bike ride a couple hours ago. Go on long walks. Play with your younger siblings. Play games with them, or your nieces or nephews or your children, cousins. Play with them, enjoy that. Remember why we're fighting, who we're fighting for. And I know that those steps are fairly simple and they're not going to stop the New World Order today or on their own. But in reality, I do believe that if we each change our habits, our diets, our lifestyles, and our mindsets, we can impact the world around us and the people around us. And so it can make it a little bit easier, I think, to get through these difficult, hard times that we're all facing and to be there for each other. And that's really what we need. So just remember that. The physical attacks are real, but the spiritual attack is the most important, the mental, the emotional. And so we need to strengthen our spirit, strengthen our mind, strengthen our heart, strengthen your connection to Creator, whatever name you give the Creator and however you practice and however you do that. And strengthen that connection and continue to expose the corruption and the lies in the physical world, and to protect and defend your health and the health of the young ones, especially, those, if you know somebody who's pregnant, tell them about the dangers of fluoride ASAP before they start putting that fluoridated water in their body and poisoning that young baby, which we already know will lead to lower IQ points and who knows what other kinds of debilitating illnesses. So, yeah. That's the first article. I think I will do what I said and just do a whole nother video so we can just kind of separate these out on their own. 5 ways your health is under attack and how to protect yourself. That's the article. Find it at The Last American Vagabond. I appreciate you guys. I want to remind you, if you would like to support me, because as I told you, I don't make a lot of money doing this, you can go buy my books at theconsciousresistance.com. You can see all of my previous books and you can pick them up there. You can buy shirts. As I mentioned, we got some new designs coming out, but check out the previous designs we have and we'll get them shipped to you. You can also sign up for monthly support at buymeacoffee.com/Derrick Broze. If you want to follow my work on Substack, which is I think one of the best places to follow because you get the videos and the articles and mostly everything else I do, you can sign up there for free, or you can sign up to support me on a monthly basis, and I appreciate that because it does keep me going. And as always, remember to please bookmark theconsciousresistance.com and share this video with your friends and family. Thank you so much for giving me your time and attention. I do appreciate it, guys. I value this connection that we share. I value those who comment. I read the comments, and I block the haters, and I listen to the kind comments, and I'm here for it. And I'm going to keep fighting and do what I can to protect the young ones and those coming after us by educating people about how to protect their health and how to protect their privacy in other areas. So please stay tuned. Until next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free.